Katie. Hey. It's been some time. How are you? What are you up to on this particular morning? And how are your kids? I just refilled it, so it may not want to light. You've been watching Clifford. Clifford the Big Red Dog? They still make Clifford content? See, I feel like at some point, the children's content that we grew up on is just going to be outdated, and they'll just come up with better characters. But it does seem like they like to reuse them. Do I have a particular religion or belief, or are you more widely spiritual? You know, that's an excellent question, and very politely phrased. Far more politely phrased than most people ask. And despite the fact that it's an excellent question, I do not have an excellent answer for you. What's it look like?
Oh, it looks like she's streaming.
I'm streaming.
I want my cuppy.
You want your cup? Okay.
Your friends?
Yeah, you could say hi to Katie if you like.
Hi, Katie.
You can't see what she looks like, but let's see. What's her profile picture of? She's standing in front of a waterfall? I think that's what it is. Looks like
She
it.
wants to talk to you about Clifford?
She's got kids.
Ah.
Bye.
I just need my cuppy.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. Georgie, the simplest answer would be that my parents and my parents' parents and my parents' parents' parents and my parents' 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 parents were all Jewish. So that makes me Jewish by default. But there's some issues with identifying that way, in that, like, much of what I do is quite explicitly heresy. Not that heresy is a Jewish word, but that's a Catholic word. But much of what I do is heretical from a Catholic perspective as well. Most notably, here we have my replica of a Judean pillar figurine, which may or may not represent Ashra. I was just at a lecture, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago, by Dan McClellan. He's a very interesting TikToker. You should follow him. He's a religious scholar, and he was talking about Ashra. In any case, I say the word Yahweh. You'll see in these prayers I will say the word Yahweh. And also I'll insert Ashra and Anat in places where it's not canonically relevant to do so. And I don't do that out of, like, any kind of historical accuracy. You're very welcome, Georgie. Right, like it's problematic on multiple levels to, like, say the Shema but put Ashura's name in, right? Like, there was never ever any tradition, ancient or modern, that does that. I do it because I'm interested in the ancient traditions, but I don't actually have genuine access to them because we don't have enough data to know what they were like, and even if we did, my life is not that of an ancient Canaanite, nor would I want it to be. So I don't know what it is that I do, right? Like, it's Jewish informed, it's historically informed, it's also deeply anachronistic, and a bit like a palimpsest, or erasing the old and putting the new on top, even if the new is even older, and blah 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 blah. Maybe a better answer is that I like spending the morning with you, right? Like, I like this kind of communication where each in our own way we convey that we care, and we're here together in this moment, sharing this little virtual space that we can share because it's 2022 and the internet is what it is, and there are satellites in outer space, and I can transmit an image of myself in light to you, and you can transmit a little bit of yourself to me in these white squiggles on the screen, and so we can be connected, and so we can repeat patterns together. And that's what the religion is. Right? Like, people often ask me, like, oh, who are you praying to? What are you praying for? I'm praying to you, right? Like that is the simplest, most succinct way that I have to describe it. Like I pray to you. I don't pray to any particular gods. I repeat the names of gods because I think it's important to do that, but I'm not praying to them in any kind of supplicating sense, right? If I'm asking anything of anyone, it's of you. I'm asking you to be here with me and to share this attention and this space. So, so thanks. And with that, we can begin. We'll begin with a little vocal warm-up. So I'll take a deep breath in and I'll exhale with a low tone, as long and pure as I can make it. And you'll see errors because this is one of the first things that I do in the morning, and I haven't exercised my voice very much. So we'll begin. Shema Yisrael Asher Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Vahafta et Anat Elohecha uv'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'chayu advarim ha'ele asher noachim mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'vitecha v'lechtecha havaderech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, avichayu letutafot b'neinecha, uchtavtaham al mizut beitecha, uvihisharecha. Good Shabbos, Batya. How are you doing today? Rain, do you know what language it is in? If not Japanese. Can anyone else tell our friend who's curious? Vichaya. כי ויחיה אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר נשבע לאבותיך לאברהם יצחק וליעקב לתת לך ערים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית ובתים מלאים כל דבר אשר למילאת וברות הצווים אשר לא עצת כערים וזיתים אשר לא נטעת והלכת ושבת הישמר לך פן תשכח את יהוה אשר תישך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. Yes, it's Hebrew. We can translate it as listen, Israel, children of El, nation of El. Who's El? Well, whoever he is, Yahweh is the same as him. Yahweh Eloheinu Echad. All is one. Gods are one. Names are one. I don't take kindly to trolls. Some I'll tolerate because you make me laugh. But you're playing with a fine line there, my friend. And the prayer goes on and says, and you shall love Vahafta, and you shall love Yahweh Eloheinu with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And these words that I am sharing with you today, teach them to your children and bind them as a symbol on your hand and let them serve as a sign on your forehead and inscribe them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates. Repeat them over and over and over again. And maybe one day you will understand the meaning that they hold. And by understand, I mean create, because what they mean now is by no means what they meant 2,500 years ago when they were first written down. Meaning changes, meaning evolves, people change, people evolve, and yet, nonetheless, we repeat the same patterns, because what else can we do? We're living creatures. The DNA in me is very similar to the DNA that is in you, is very similar to the DNA that is in the plants in this room and outside and the bacteria in my gut, right? We're all patterned creatures that are similar and yet different. So we can continue to read some old patterns, shall we? We're going to read from this book. Good morning, Run. How are you doing today? So, we're reading from this story of Atrahasis. Atrahasis is a heroic character. Good morning, Gabriella. How are you doing? Right? And Atrahasis is very pious, right? And there have been a series of challenges to the people of ancient Mesopotamia. There's been sickness, there's been drought, and these challenges have been justified by the gods saying the people were making too much noise, which is interesting because we read this earlier story, the Enuma Elish, where the gods were making too much noise and started a cosmic war, right? So there's this conceit in these stories that there's too many people, there's too much clamor, time for some death. And I'm not sure what I think about that conceit. I think it's thin. I don't find it very narratively motivating, but nonetheless, that's the story. So, humans were created to toil for the gods, and they make all this clamor, and then the gods punish them, and we're in this repeating cycle in the midst of a drought. And maybe today, and the story just keeps going on and on, but maybe today, the humans will get out of the drought. We'll see. So. And Nisaba held back the nourishing flow from her breasts, so the black soil of the countryside became blanched white. So the landscape everywhere lay encrusted with salty dust, and the earth denied her succor, so nothing grew, not even grain. Made it so the people were plagued by the horrible disease, constricting the birth canal, so as to deny prosperous birth. Ea with his Lamu men were watchful at the bolt of the sea on high. Adad made it so his rains were in short supply. Below, subterranean waters no longer gushed from springs, so that the farmers' fields no longer produced in abundance, and Nisaba held back the nourishing flow from her breasts once again. So the black soil of the countryside became blanched white once again. So this landscape everywhere lay encrusted with a salty dust once again, and the earth denied her succor, so nothing grew, not even grain. Made it so the people were plagued by the horrible disease, constricting the birth canal so as to deny a prosperous birth. Thereby, the lands were beset by famine, and its people by misery. For the first year they consumed any grain that was in store. For the next year there was none left to take from the storerooms. In the third year they were showing signs of starvation. By the fourth year their once steadfast shoulders slouched. Unlike previous years, they now walked bent over in public. And these were the circumstances when the fifth year came. The daughter looked with contempt on her mother's arrival, and the mother would fail to invite her own daughter inside. The daughter kept her eye on the scales at her mother's sale, and the mother kept her eye on the scales at her daughter's sale. And by the sixth year came, the daughter was the meal. Oh my goodness. Terrible cannibalism. What? And by the sixth year came, the daughter was the meal, and the honorable son was distinguished as the main course. Thus were all the generations of mankind consumed by fate, until there were only but 1 or 2 homes left still occupied, so that their faces were a matrix of sores like malted grain, and they remained alive only by clinging urgently on to life. This is dreadful. They remained alive only by clinging urgently on to life. But the upright man, the hero, Atrahasis, heard the word of his lord Ea. Atrahasis raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his god. He removed himself from God's communication conduit. Instead, he set his bed nearby to the canals, which spoke not. Still, at midnight he dutifully made the sacrificial offering, and even as the lassitude of sleep was getting hold of him, still he spoke to the irrigation waters in the canal channels. May the irrigation waters carry it away, the river convey it. Let this gift offering find its way to the feet of my lord Ea, so that when Ea looks upon it he will not forsake me, so that when I sleep I might experience a portentous dream. And Ea heard what he had spoken, and having heeded him, he called together his Lahamu men, addressing them thusly, Go, and seek out the man who has sent this bequest to me. So They journeyed across the magnificently broad oceans until they went the entire way to Apsu's water shore, conveying to Atrahasis the message they brought from Ea. He lowered himself to the ground and kissed it before them. Then the Lahamu men went back across the waters of the ocean. Ea raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his officer Usmu. Go forth, and seek out Atrahasis and convey my decision, that the state of your lands comes from the people's actions. And I'll remind you that by the people's actions, what they mean is there were too many people and they were making too much noise and we got grumpy. Right? The gods here, they're not realistically motivated at all. God, I'm going to read that again, because, this is, like, perhaps the darkest thing that I've read in this entire book. The 6th year came, the daughter was the meal, and the honorable son was distinguished as the main course. Thus were all the generations of mankind consumed by fate, until there was only 1 or 2 homes left occupied, and their faces were a matrix of sores like malted grain, but they remained alive only by urgently clinging to life. Wow. And with that, we will pause. Keep on promising you every day, oh yes, the drought will end. But instead the story just repeats itself over and over and over again. But at one point, the drought will end. But after the drought ends, there's going to be a terrible flood. Right? And when the flood comes, that's when we'll see some resemblance to the Genesis story of Noah. But the majority of the story is not like that at all. So we'll just have to wait and continue on. Maybe tomorrow the drought will end. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe. We shall see. Run Jimsy, thank you for the chicken leg and the cloud bread. I appreciate it very much. It was very sweet of you. The prayer for the fast of Av is also horrible. I'm not familiar with the fast of Av. Will you tell me a bit about it, Batya? How are you doing today, Run? Run Jimsy, that's a good name. I really do appreciate the little gifts. For those of you that are interested, there is a subscription option in the link in my bio to Patreon, or you can subscribe here on TikTok, or you can send a tip, or you can send little gifts in the stream, whatever you like. Each one of them has like different pay scales, and TikTok's conversion rate's terrible. When you subscribe via TikTok, I get only 1/3 of what you're actually paying. But in any case, I do appreciate the support very much. So, the fast for the ruins of the temple. Yes. I find it interesting that holiday, there's this historical claim that the first temple and the second temple were destroyed on the same day. Tisha B'Av. I don't know enough. Dr. Punk is advertising. Look at all of the interesting emojis you can get. If you pay TikTok $6, I'll get 2. But you get emojis. Yeah, both temples are said to have been destroyed on the same day, which, there's a 1 in 365 chance that is correct. But of course, like when the Romans destroyed the second temple, it didn't take a single day, right? The Bar Kokhba revolt took, 2 or 3 years, and I don't know when they sacked Jerusalem, but it was probably several days that it took to destroy the temple. So who knows? And maybe we have accurate understanding of when the Bar Kokhba revolt was, down to the day or a week. We certainly don't know the dates when the first temple was destroyed. Yeah, what a religion. Let's remember all the genocides, right? But it's kind of the same thing as this. This is not Judaism. This is ancient Mesopotamia, and yet the story is basically the same. The gods wrought destruction upon the people, and we repeat and repeat and repeat the pattern of destruction so that we can remember it, and define our humanity through it. It's quite a worldview. So, now it's time for Arati. My flame is a little bit bigger this morning because I just refilled it. And when I refill it, there's some thermodynamic thing about the way that the oil moves up the wick. It burns faster when it's fuller, and it slows down as it gets empty. Logarithmic curve. Same horrific punishment. Life is full of suffering. Lamp oil. Lamp oil. I don't know what lamp oil is made out of. I assume it's some sort of purified petroleum product. I don't think it's organic. I mean, it's organic, but the carbon was sequestered for millions of years ago, as opposed to like a few years ago. Over and over and again. Yes, over and over again, Rain. Right? That's our mythology. Exists in large part to remind us and in some ways perpetuate the cycles of trauma that make our society the shape that it is in. Good morning, Destin Russo. How are you doing? Nice to see you. It's time for Arati. So Arati is a prayer of light. It's the word Arati means flame. Thank you, Dr. Punk. I do like color coordinating. It's a thing I like to do. Yeah, I'm not sure why I like to do it. Probably because I don't know how else to like look nice besides paying attention to color. I like color. Color is very good. So, you're feeling a little ill. I'm sorry you're feeling ill. I do hope you feel better. Dr. Punk sending me flames. That means it's time for Arati. It's time for Arati, Emerald Kitty Moon. Time for Arati, Linda. Let's say Arati. Arati means flame. Thank you for the roses. Thank you for the flames. Thank you for the good energy, positive vibes. How are you doing, Rachel? It's nice to see you again. Let's say Arati. Arati goes like this. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Venugopala Venuola Papa Vidura Navanita Chora Jaya Jaya Arati Venkantaramana Venkantaramana Sankatarana Sitarama Radhe Shama Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara Bhavani Sankara Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sundari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya Hanumanta Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya Trimuttri Avatara Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sankarachaya Advaita Gurave Jaya Jaya Arati Sadgurunata Shivananda Jaya Jaya Arati Vishnu Devananda Jaya Jaya Arati Agastya Munaye Shriyama Priyaye Jaya Jaya Arati Ayapa Samine Dharma Shastave Jaya Jaya Arati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Buddha Gurave Jaya Jaya Arati Muhammad Gurave Guru Nanak Gurave Samastya Gurubho Namaha Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Natatra Sayobati Natandrakaratam Nima Vidyobati Kutoyamagni Twameva Bantamanamandi Sarvam Tasya Basya Samidam Vimanti Om Gange Kayamane Kaiva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhi Kaveri Namastitam Namo Namaha. How do you love someone without invading their uniqueness? Tvameva mata chapita tvameva Tvameva bandusha saka Tvameva vidya javinam Tvameva sarvam mama deva Kayena vacha manasandriyarva Buddhyatmanava prakrite sabhavad Karomi adyad mangalam prasmahi Narayana iti sarmar payami Sarvada Mambravijaya Mamikam Savanam Vijaya Hamsva Sarva Papayo Mokshaya Mima Sucha. Happy birthday, Batya. You did tell me yesterday, yeah, that due to the idiosyncrasies of the Hebrew calendar, one birthday and the other can line up on occasion. And you said that your birthday was not a good one. You were under a lot of stress. I'm sorry to hear that. It does seem like there are many birthdays in September. I guess that means that people like to have sex in January? I don't know. Thank you for the calendar, Dr. Punk. Good morning, Kimmy. There's an interesting way to frame the question, something I would say. How do you love someone without invading their uniqueness? I mean, there are many, many ways to ask that question, right? And the fact that you would frame it that way leads me to think that you are succeeding. Either you are succeeding or they've given you some very negative feedback and you've taken it to heart and it hurts you. That's why you posted the question above. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very challenging to respect difference, right? Because very often when we interact with other people intimately, we experience differences as threats. And I won't say that that's a mistake. Like, often differences are threats. Like, often people want things in their lives that are mutually exclusive, right? And finding a way to make a life together is challenging, right? Because you have to find compromise, but not only compromise is usually a failure. Compromise isn't what I look for in my relationships. I look for frames that can hold both sets of needs without them being so obliquely, or directly rather, so directly in conflict. Right? In my relationships here on this farm, there are many things that I want very deeply, that I need in order to be myself, that other people are not interested in, at best, or directly oppose at worst. And it's constant negotiation, it's constant stress. But I think one thing that we do that works is that we don't actually ever ask anyone to be different, right? Like, we try to respect that they are the way they are for good reasons, even if they're not comprehensible reasons. Your fiance is 10 years younger, and that creates conflict in certain ways, because you're at different life stages and you want different things. Yeah, how do you love someone without invading their uniqueness? How do you let them be themselves when some aspects of them being themselves challenges you, or prevents you from being your music is the hard. Well, if music is the hardest thing, then I think you've got a lot going for you. There's this funny thing that musical taste cements itself when you're young and impressionable, and then you just don't listen to new music. Like, this is just like a human pattern, and I wish it were different. I wish it were different for me. I wish I felt motivated to just listen to new music and absorb it. But I just don't. It's a dilemma, something I would say. There isn't an easy answer. I think that you have framed the problem productively, and the answer is not to change yourselves, not to change them, but to live with those differences, even when they hurt. I'm not a wise woman, right? I'm wrapped up in all sorts of my own interpersonal conflicts. I think that this framing, this little box here that I'm in, right, and the things that I say and the way that I present myself, the image that I create for you on the other side of the screen, it gives me an aura of authority or emotional intelligence that I just simply do not have. And yet I still get questions like this, and so I answer them, but I'm deeply flawed. Deeply flawed. You get to see my wisdom, right? The people that I live with get to see my selfishness, and my stubbornness, and my lack of empathy. But we just continue to live. We just continue to be. Compromise and negotiation. Yeah. Usually, if I compromise and it actually looks like a compromise, meeting in the middle, I feel like I've lost. Right? I feel and the other people also feel like they've lost. Like, compromise decisions in the most narrow sense of the world are not good, right? Nobody gets what they want in a compromise situation. People get half of what they want. But negotiation, yes. Constantly negotiation. Constant negotiation. Always, always, always. Lack of empathy. We can always be more empathetic. But, sometimes empathy hurts. Like, literally, to have empathy for someone is to take on their emotional state. And sometimes that emotional state is not healthy. And they may want empathy from you. They may want understanding from you. But if you were to take on that empathy, you would be hurting yourself. That might not be fair. It might not be worth it. One day I'll make a video about it. Maybe. Maybe one day I will. It's really hard to capture my life in 30-second chunks in ways that are comprehensible to other people. I try. Sometimes I succeed. Sometimes I don't. I haven't made a video in quite some time. I'm sorry. I will. I will be making more videos too one day. Once I finish my degree. Blah. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. That deserves a goat. Maybe a YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel. You could check it out. There's like an interesting video on there that I made about my grandfather that you might like. I filmed him before he died. Now it's time to say Kaddish. So Kaddish is prayer of grief. I mean, Kaddish just means prayer, but the mourner's Kaddish is a prayer of mourning, prayer of grief. And we'll say it together. If there's anything that you are lacking, that you have lost, that you are missing, or reciprocally, anything that you wish to let go of that you can't, some part of you is clinging to so tightly, right? These words are a little bit of a magic spell. It only works socially, right? They're a magic spell because of their social history and the interaction that we have here. Right? We do this ritual grief time. Yes, this ritual grief time. This ritual of social grieving. And in some way, because we are performing it, right? We can allow us bit by bit to let go of what we need to let go of. So that's what these words are for today. Good morning, Taryn. For the last 2,500 years, give or take, my ancestors have said these words in response to death, and encourage you to say them too. Yidkadal, Vidkadash, Shema Rabba, Biama Divrachute, Viamlich Malchute, Bachayachon, Viamechon, Uchayede Kolbe Israel, Bagala, Visman Kari, Vimru. Amen. Yehe Shema Rabba, Mevarach Li Alam, Onmei Almaya. Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitbaar, Vitramam, Vitnase, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Sheme de Gude, Shah, Berichu. Leila Mingol Birchata, Vishirata, Tushbechata, Venechimata, Jamiran Biama, Vimru. Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba, Min Shemaya, Vechaim Alenu, Vyochol Israel, Vimru. Amen. O Se Shalom, Bibramav, Huya Ase Shalom, Alenu, Vyochol Israel, Vimru. Amen. Oh, say shalom mimramav, uya say shalom aleinu, v'ya lechol Yisrael, v'imru, v'imru, amen. Have a good day, Rain. I'll see you later, something I would say. I'm glad that something I said helped. Yes, it is Hebrew, Fantasy Factory. Do come back soon. Oh, Batya. Every day you're here, you ask me to sing that song. And it's hard to say no. So, we'll do one more, because you asked. I don't want to pray to my maker, no, no. I just want to be feeling free. Not just who I am, but the pink and golden land and that wide, wild sky over me. Help me to the sun. Hey, I'm looking everywhere. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer. And I don't want to pray. No. I don't want to pray. No, no, no. I don't want to pray. We don't want to pray. But it's not much good to talk. Better to walk it. Not much good to take. Not much good to take, better to give. We are done, forgiven, and forgotten of our sins, and I promise you, my friends, all that dies will live again. So, pardon, God and Mom, what I'm saying isn't fair. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer, and I don't want to pray, no. I don't want to pray, no, 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 I don't want to pray. We don't want to pray. Pray. I love Allah, Allah made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. Asher, Asher, made good, and a not made bad. Eloheinu made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate. I love Allah. God made, God made, God made me. Do I like Gnosticism? I do. What an interesting question. Often, it's kind of like, do you believe in Jesus or something? Like, no, it's a little bit different. Yes, I like Gnosticism. Thunder Perfect Mind from the Nag Hammadi Library is a poem that I will never forget. The way that it resonates in my mind. You can check in my archive. I've made a little bit of content about Thunder Perfect Mind. I hope you have a lovely day too, Sleepy Bunny. So I have to go now. But if you enjoyed this stream, I would encourage you to check out the link in my bio to subscribe to my Patreon. Or you can send a one-time tip, or you can subscribe here on TikTok if you want special secret emojis. There are a lot of ways to support this shared project that we are doing together, this shared space that we make together, and it really does make a big difference in my life to know that you're here and that you care and that you want me to continue this work. And it is work, right? At the very least, it is a commitment of time and attention. And I'm very happy to give you my time and give you my attention. And maybe one day I can make the numbers work out. But until then, we'll still be here. So I will see you here tomorrow to say these words once more. There are a couple ways to do one-time tips. There's a tip thing on TikTok directly. If you click on my bio, there's a thing that says tip. Also, if you click on the link in my bio, there's a little tip jar there. And I think it just asks you for a credit card. You might be able to do it through Patreon too. There's a lot of ways to do it. And like, in order for these things to work, they have to be like super simple, right? Like one click, and then you've done it, and you don't have to think about it. But, there's too many options, so unfortunately you have to think about it, because I've given you too many options, and I don't know how to differentiate between them. But probably the simplest is the TikTok tip link, which is just like literally the button on my profile page, and you can do that. So, thank you for the question. Thank you for your curiosity, Emerald. It's basically the dynamic is like, I really want this job, right? Like, it's weird, but like, instead of sending in a job application to a hierarchical organization where there's like a hiring manager or a boss who will like look at my credentials and be like, yeah, I'll support you in doing this work. Instead, I have to, like, every single one of you is my boss. You have mushrooms out back and your dog is eating them. Yeah, send me a picture. They're probably fine. Right? So it's like, I have to ask every single one of you for this job constantly, all the time. Right? And so my pay comes in little drips. And like, that's okay. Like, I'm actually more comfortable being supported by a large group rather than some hierarchical organization. But the trick is actually getting support from a large group. And I have not actually figured out that trick. I'm supported by a very tiny group. This much support. But it's okay. Because, I'm not actually working on TikTok full-time. I'm working on a PhD full-time, and they pay me to do it, so I'll just keep doing it. Anyway, you don't have to hear me repeat this over and over and over again. I feel compelled to rehearse this, right? And Dr. Punk, you say it's your favorite infomercial, but I really don't want to make an infomercial. I don't, and so I'm the reluctant infomercial. No, Taryn, I don't actually have a Cash App, not linked to TikTok. It's too many things, but there's a link in my bio for very solid options. I do have a PayPal. If you message me, I can let you know my PayPal. Blah blah blah. All right, I gotta go. But thank you so much, friends. I will see you here very soon, and we can say these words once more. Okay. Very well.